Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Pete McAlindon. I am the entrepreneur in residence and the executive director for the Center for Advanced Entrepreneurship. What that means from the Crummer perspective, and certainly something of interest to you, is I have a full-time class load, so I teach the courses in entrepreneurship, and I also have a full-time community role. So I love this position because I get to bring the community in the classroom and the classroom back out to the community. So I want to start with a question. And Jessica, if you would help me here, I can't see my chat window. But please let us know. I want to know why you're here. What is it about Crummer right now at this time in your life that matters? So I'll let you ponder that for just a second. We'll go on to this next slide. Some of you who know of psychology or the field of psychology in general probably know this gentleman, Abraham Maslow. And I like what he says here. You can choose to go back toward safety or forward toward growth. So the reason I just asked you the question that you did is because growth must be chosen again and again, and fear must be overcome again and again. So if you think about what Dr. Maslow is doing here, is he's coupling growth with fear. So growth is, thinking out of the box, or growth in general, or making a life decision. There's some fear associated with it, but it's outweighed by the growth that you can achieve if you can mitigate, moderate, or completely eliminate that fear. So why are you here? I hope it's because of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to move up this hierarchy and to become more comfortable with yourself, more comfortable in what you want to do with your life, and to begin to self-actualize. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think most of us pretty well have the basic needs covered. Maybe during the pandemic, we dipped down into the bottom of this hierarchy, but certainly we're always looking. It's not as easy as a lot of people think. What does it mean to have esteem needs, prestige, and feelings of accomplishment? Well, we just heard from a number of our alumni that they've kind of achieved that. They're there and well on their way to achieving one's full potential. So what is it that we're looking to do here at Crummer, first and foremost, to get you to the top of this pyramid? We're looking for development of yourself, your full potential, so you can start to impact community, your own lives, the world as a whole. And notice it also says including creative activities. That's very important. As an entrepreneur, that really, self-actualization is really focused on those creative activities. Let me tell you a little bit about, where this ends up from my perspective. Why am I here as a Crummer professor, and certainly where's my self-actualization as an entrepreneur? Beyond growth in education, beyond growth in development of really any kind, what is it that I'm really looking to do? In my self-actualization path that I'm obviously currently still on, is one of, I like to work with people that have the same vision and purpose that I have for me in my life. I like to be able to have enough resource to do it, and I like to impact the world. So as an entrepreneur, what do I strive for? Those kinds of things. People I love to work with, resources to do it, whether it's my own or others, and everything come together to really impact what it is we're doing with whatever project that we're working on. And it always starts with you. If you take a course in entrepreneurship with me, we spend a lot of time throughout the entire term on your ikigai. This is a Japanese term for finding your purpose. Everyone has a purpose, or an ikigai. It means a reason for finding one's purpose. And it's a lifelong process, just like self-actualizing. So you see the parallels between what Maslow put together and what ikigai is kind of espousing here. So it takes time, takes a lot of self-reflection, and it takes a lot of input from others. So I want to take a closer look at this. When we define your purpose, a lot of people interchange it with your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you at Crummer now? What is it that you want out of the program to help develop your purpose? Your ikigai has 4 main components. What you love. what the world needs, what you do really well, and how you make money doing anything you're doing. And if you think about it, what you love is not necessarily what you do really well, and vice versa. You can do something really well without loving it. And sometimes what the world needs won't make you a lot of money. And obviously, sometimes making a lot of money has nothing to do with what the world really needs. So I want to just step you through how these four a path forward for you self-actualizing and figuring out what your purpose is, or what we call your ikigai. So here's the first circle, what you love. Do you really know what you love to do? And it's a rhetorical question right now, but think about what it is you really love to do. And is it something that the world needs? And if it is, those two circles intersect. Now you have a mission in your life. If you do something really well and it's what you love to do, those two circles intersecting are what we call passion. That's where a lot of people, especially in entrepreneurship, say, oh, if you have enough passion for something, you'll be successful. Ikigai says, nope, there's more dimensions to this. Passion is very important, but you still have a lot more to add to figuring out your ikigai, what your true purpose is. And when you take a look at how these three circles interact, we come up with definitions. You could be happy and you could feel content and fullness, but you don't have any wealth. This is where this next circle comes in. So is it something that you can be paid for? Notice passion is out of that circle. So a lot of times passionate endeavors, certainly nothing wrong with those, but a lot of times they don't have anything to help drive whatever that passion is from a financial perspective. So as we start to look at these more closely, what you do really well and what you can get paid for, that's a profession. And if you're be paid for, that's a vocation. And taking a closer look at how three circles interact. So if you feel satisfied, but you have a feeling of uselessness, chances are you're working on something that the world doesn't really need. When we leave out what you love, you feel comfortable, but you have a feeling of emptiness. That's pretty common too. And then finally, if you leave out what you do really well, you can be excited about something, be complacent, but you have a sense of uncertainty. So, and if you think about that, that should make a lot of sense to us all, because we typically gravitate to those things that we do quite naturally, and they provide a level of comfort for us. But remember what Maslow said, to grow, you have to be able to step out of that comfort zone. You have a little bit of fear associated with it, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, right smack in the middle where everything comes together, this is your purpose. So that's a quick overview of the development of you in every class that you'll have here at Crummer. So this applies to everything that you're doing. To really focus in on this in the courses in entrepreneurship, primarily because without knowing all of this, projects, new ideas are very hard to move forward with. So let's take a look at our mission here at Crummer, kind of our own ikigai. And you've heard this multiple times, I'm sure, this morning or prior to this morning. You know, we're looking for business leaders. It's a very high quality education, integrated, which means it's experiential and prepares them to add significant value. So this is you providing significant value to the organizations with whom you work, and those can be profit or nonprofit, and ultimately impact communities. Let me show it to you graphically. I'm a visual learner. And here's what I think is an important piece. Most education stops with these three blocks. And if you go from left to right, you usually get, a textbook, you have a discussion, you move from data to information to knowledge. And there is absolutely, certainly nothing wrong with this. This is the main point of education, knowledge and being able to process the kind of information that you're taught in class. I want to show you three more blocks, however. We take knowledge and start to glean insight by connecting pieces of knowledge that we have across different disciplines. We begin to take that insight from that knowledge and begin to develop wisdom. So another thing that's really, really important here at Crummer, and you heard it from our alum just a few minutes ago, take those different dots in those different classes and learn to cross-pollinate them. And also take the knowledge and the insight and the wisdom from the other folks in your classes and develop that as well. Because ultimately, it's this last block that matters most, not just for your own lives, but certainly communities at large. And that's impact. So far, you go from data to information to knowledge to insight to wisdom and finally impact. It's the process of ikigai, and it's also the process to self-actualization. And it's really the impact piece where you really begin to see the fruits of your labors. All right, and two things I want to focus on in our time this morning. Just two key words: leaders and innovators. And certainly, I don't think there's really anything that we do today that doesn't have a global impact or a global reach. So you could probably include that too. But let me focus on leadership and innovation in particular. This is a real example, one that we have been researching for about 18 years now, and it applies a lot to, again, every one of your classes, and I'll kind of walk you through where the different classes and how they apply. But here's an experiential example of helping children with cerebral palsy. So there is an organization in town, I'll talk about them in a second, that actually focuses on this new bit of physical, social, and cognitive education called Conductive Education. It was developed in Hungary in the mid-40s, and probably a decade or two, probably 2 decades ago, it started making inroads into the United States. Conductive education is a method to really help a child retrain their brain for better. Keep that in mind for 1 second. For those of you who are not familiar with cerebral palsy, it's a group of disorders that primarily affect one's motion, muscle tone, and posture. So think of physical disability and a lot of times not cognitive disability. Here's this beautiful young man right here. This is a child with cerebral palsy, usually in a chair, taken to different classes, receives a little bit of physical therapy if the parents, have the right kind of insurance, can afford it, and so on. The school that I mentioned earlier, this Conductive Education School or Conductive Education Center of Orlando, it's 15 minutes from campus here. And I've been serving on this board for 18 years now. It was founded by a Rollins alum because his son was born with cerebral palsy. So it's been an amazing ride, and we've been able to help a lot of children. But the process continues. This innovation doesn't end. And here's really what I learned about leadership and innovation. It happens anytime a parent comes into this center looking for help for their child. The parents come in and they have seemingly the same questions, or generally the same questions. Okay, I'm here. I've been through a couple centers before. I've taken a look online, and all of your programs seem to do the same thing. How is yours different? Thinking, all right, I'm taking mental notes. How will this program work? How will I know this program will work for me? Questions like that. Is this the best program for my child? And how much does it cost in time and money? Because it's a big effort to get a child with cerebral palsy in and out of their chair, in and out of a van, and in and out of school. And a lot of parents are reluctant to talk to other parents because it's, the subjective, oh, this program is really great. And they just want to know more about what they can do to help their own child. Parents' opinions and thoughts are great, but they don't carry a lot of weight seemingly anymore. And here's what it distills down to. Does your program work for my child? And how do you know? And can you prove it? So parents, they don't ask this question directly, but this is my summary of really what they're trying to get at. And it's the most important question we can answer as an organization. So I have a doctorate in industrial engineering. My brain is wired for process. And Dr. Demings is a gentleman who I studied a lot, read a lot of his works and so on. Genius when it comes to quality and making sure products are of highest quality. And I love what he says here. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And you can imagine in a lot of different schools, especially this conductive education school, we don't have a lot of data. We just have a lot of testimony. So my mind now. So I'm thinking to myself, we have parents who have critical needs. I kind of try to read between the lines from what they're telling us, and they're looking for quantitative data. They're looking for something to say, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now I can compare programs, or at least have a better understanding of what you can do for my child. So here's where the innovation piece comes in. Given the knowledge that we just went through and what we all aspire to be, let's develop an innovation for this little girl. Her name is Amy. And this little walker that she's using is a typical device that they use at the conductive education school. So you have to, and you can tell by looking at it, it's something you have to have a little bit of strength to hold yourself up. And really what you're doing is using this device to learn how to walk. And what I mean by that is just retraining muscles so they support your body better so you can live a more independent life. So this project is extremely important for little girls like Amy. The sooner we start with them, the better, because your brain has what they call plasticity, which means it has an ability to be retrained. And the example I like to give to everyone is for folks that can play sports, it's what we do every time we practice. I don't care if it's soccer, golf, some obviously sports are more complex than others, but that's what we're doing. We're retraining our brain for certain motions. That's what Amy is looking to do too, but obviously. So in looking at this, I want you to spend just a second or two. What are your thoughts? Okay, so I know what the parents are looking for. I know what Amy is looking for as well. She's looking for more independence. She wants to play like other kids. And so what the parent wants and what the child wants, certainly what conductive education wants, are in alignment. So what do we do to help answer that question that the parent asked? How does your program help my child? And quit waving your hands and saying all these great things. That's opinion. I'm looking for data. So here's what we did. We took a look at what technologies were out there. Was there any disruptive innovation? And this is kind of a definition of what disruptive innovation is. Who was out there in the marketplace doing anything to help specifically children with special needs and disabilities, and even more specifically, those with cerebral palsy? So when you take a look at disruptive innovation, you take a look at a problem that's not well understood. Like, who's solved this before? What have they done with it? How can we leverage what they've done? Does this potentially provide for a new market? There's an innovation that we can develop. Is it dramatic and game changing? Is this something brand spanking new, where we're going to have to work and educate folks as to what it is? Does the customer know this exists? And what's it going to take for them to get up to speed with it, accept it, and so on? Is the market predictable or unpredictable? And then finally, traditional business models apply to what we're doing, or do they not? So just a quick definition of what disruptive innovation is, the process of doing it, and whether or not you have something that can be considered disruptive. So as we go forward, we start with why, not just on the personal level, but certainly at the organization level. And for those of you that are not familiar with Simon Sinek, in these two books, particularly the one here in red, Start With Why, this is a phenomenally good book on finding a path for an organization that's consistent, it's reliable, and it has a definite purpose. You'll see at the bottom this link on this slide, and I'll share this with Jessica after we're done here so you can have the presentation and the link. But Simon Sinek gives a lot of great TED Talks on everything that he writes about. So if you're not big into reading, or you want to, watch a video before selecting one of these books, that's a great one to watch. So the why, as Simon Sinek defines it, your purpose, your cause, your belief. That sounds like a lot like your ikigai, but now it's company-based, not personal-based. So this is the TED Talk that I referred to. It's 5 minutes. It's great. Here's the punchline. When you can articulate why you're doing something, it activates your limbic brain. Why is that important? Because it's a gateway to allow people to buy in a why for anything that you're doing in life. People then can emotionally attach to it, and it provides them a gateway to participate in whatever meaningful way they can. So here's a little bit of definition for you. So again, the why activates the limbic system, that part of your brain that helps you make decisions. And the endocrine system is an automatic nervous system. You can't help it when somebody tells you why they do what they do, especially when they tell a really good story around it. So it elicits a lot of emotion. It triggers motivation, behavior, decision-making, and so on. So you really have a way to connect with people. That's why the why is so important. It's human-to-human connection at a very different level. So on one side, you have you understanding yourself really well through your ikigai, and on the other side, business alignment. Let me share something with you that is extremely, extremely important. One of the key takeaways from the presentation this morning. When these two things align really well, this maximizes your chances of success, both in life and for the organization that you work in or work for. Could be your own. So keep those two things in mind. So when we talk about our why, back to Amy in helping find a solution for parents with children with cerebral palsy and the children themselves, our purpose, our cause, our belief. That's what a why is. So let's articulate it here for Amy in the Conductive Education School. In everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo, which basically means I'm not happy with the way things are right now. We shouldn't be. Why rest on your laurels? There's always room for improvement. The way we challenge the status quo is through a data-driven system tailored to meet your child's specific needs. You know where I got that. That came directly from the mom. She didn't say it directly, but she's looking for data, quantitative analyses to help her child. And then we believe in helping a child reach his or her full potential through physical, social, and cognitive development will help increase their levels of independence. So this is what we articulate to anybody who's interested in the Conductive Education School or wanting to learn more about it. And once they know what we're doing, they're like, oh, I get it. I don't like the status quo either. That's emotional for me, for a lot of parents. It's going to be data driven. Now, that's different. I wonder how you do that. And I get that you're working on the entire child, social, cognitive, physical development to make a difference. What is the difference? Higher levels of independence. So back to this question. Does this program work for my child? How do you know, and can you prove it? This is the status quo. This beautiful young lady here, and don't get me wrong, this is not a disparaging to help reduce the number of sores on a child's body, the overall comfort, the way they engineer them to get them in and out of places, vehicles, and so on. It's amazing from a chair technology. But this is not where you want a child to be for long periods of time. And unfortunately, it is. And guess what these children want? Guess what the parents want for their children? So most children with cerebral palsy have their needs, safety and physiological needs taken care of. But really what parents are looking for, I mean, think about how much belongingness and love and friendships and relationships, all that kind of stuff you get just from a college experience, all the different people that you know. So that's where a lot of us get belongingness and love needs met. Esteem needs build from there, and then certainly when you connect with the right people and organizations, you're well on your way to self-actualization. But right now, most children are toward the bottom of this hierarchy. And what are we doing through physical, social, and cognitive development? And if we can develop a disruptive solution to help these children, we can move them up to the top of the pyramid. Help them find their own why. Now, self-actualization, remember, this is achieving one's full potential. So my potential is different than anyone else's potential. And these children, depending on the varying degrees of cerebral palsy, their potential will be different than any other child's potential with cerebral palsy. All right, so let's apply the Crummer mission statement here. I have a bunch of information, bunch of knowledge. I can read about that all day long. I can search the web for a lot of information on conductive education and helping children with cerebral palsy. But it's up to me to figure out develop the insight, develop the wisdom, and then apply it so we can make the impact. And here's how you do it. This is what you're looking for here at Crummer. This is one of our key value propositions, because a lot of times you don't get it anywhere outside of a really good education type environment, especially led by instructors who have a lot of experience in whatever they're teaching you. So look for these things. People who listen without judgment, people who ask a lot of questions, people who seek surprise, like, I have no idea where this is going, but wow, did you look at what we uncovered? Look what we just found out about what this thing we were working on is. People who are fully present, people who are willing to be wrong, people who make time for curiosity, people who are not afraid to say, I don't know, people who don't let past failings affect future development or the way they pursue life. So at the end of this, what are you really looking for? People who are on the same path that you are to make your lives better, to make those community efforts that you're involved in better. So keep that in mind. Culture of curiosity. Look for it wherever you go. Because as an entrepreneur, this is my organizations, people within organizations who have these kind of traits. I know something good will come out of it. So here's the first thing that we actually looked at, independence level. I went in and I talked to the folks at the Conductive Education School. I said, what happens if children in cerebral palsy never come to this school or a school at all? What happens? And they say they get worse over time. And you can imagine being in a chair for long periods of time and not at a school to socialize. That makes sense. So doing nothing is not an option here. These children don't benefit from just being left in a home or in their chairs or whatever. Physical therapy helps. Right? They do develop some level of independence just through straight physical therapy. Conductive education, because it adds social development and cognitive development to physical independence, conductive education gives a little better performance over time. But here is the hypothesis. If we had a system that could gather a lot of data from these children, could we make what we're doing even better? So that's really what we were after. In class, I teach about the business model canvas. I'll walk through this fairly quickly. There are 9 parts to a business model that show you how everything comes together, the flow and function of any business, typically startup, but this business model, you can apply it to any business that's out there. Here are the 9 components. Right-hand corner where it says customer relationships, the value proposition and customers. Those are the things that we start with. So with these 9 things and talking to people who have this curiosity about wanting to help, they understand why you're doing what you're doing, and they have a buy-in, they have a purpose and a passion for what it is you're doing, you can begin to have great discussions around all of these different titles around this business model. And right smack in the middle here where it says start here, what do you do? What is your value proposition? Well, that was our why. We're looking to help children become more independent. How do you do it? And with whom? Yeah, I'm going off to the right here. How do you interact? What do your customer relationships look like? How do you reach them? How do you help them? And then we go to the left of that middle block. How do you do it? What are your key activities? It's conductive education, social, cognitive, and physical. What do you need? What are the key resources? And who's going to help you? And then on the bottom, you have revenue stream and cost structure, right? 2 very key components in any business model, because we run the Conductive Education Center as a regular business. We have P&L, we have budgets, we have everything, and we make sure we adhere to that. Just a quick example, if you're, and something hopefully we can all relate to, is a lemonade stand. So if you want a quick and dirty, what does one of these business models look like? Just think of this one picture, if you will, this one instance of this. And I always start with the middle block again. Why do people care about lemonade? Well, especially here in Florida, they're looking for a cold, tasty, natural lemonade on the go. So that means I'm setting up a little booth, something that people can come up to, buy quickly, and keep moving. So where do I do this? At parks. What kind of relationship do I develop? It's got to be personal. What are my channels? There's a booth sale, maybe a website so people know where I am week after week, what kind of parks I'm in, who's there, and so on. Key activities. I have to make the lemonade, I have to market it, and I have to have an ability to sell it. My key partners are the folks who own the parks. Those are the municipalities. Key resources. I better have a supply chain for ingredients. I better have a pipeline of salespeople. I better have some pretty good training on what to do if certain things happen. And I should have a booth and equipment. You can see my cost structure, ingredients, equipment, sales, and commission type fees and payroll, and flyers, and maybe some website stuff in there. And what are my revenue streams? Lemonade sales and tips. So this is a quick, very high level view of this is how you could potentially build a lemonade stand. You could take this and go to a municipality, get a permit to start generating money. These business models are always very dynamic, which means they're ever changing. For example, if the municipalities say, well, at times of COVID, we don't allow people to be out in parks selling stuff, okay, now you just change your key partner and your customer segment. There might not be anyone out there, but you could begin to analyze it. So a very flexible tool. And what's neat about it, like I guess like anything else that we have today, you can keep record of it. So there are great software tools to help you iterate your business to complete success, understand where you've been and where you're going. The key to building any successful business model is product market fit. What does that mean from, just a general perspective? If I can build something that the market really wants and needs, and it's a pain point that's obviously a big pain point, not a dull, aching kind of thing, but like I need morphine to help with this problem that I have, the product market fit, the business gets off the ground and grows more quickly. And here's what we do. We design and we observe exactly what's going on. I love the observation piece because that's what I described to you when a mother and her child or children came into the conductive education school. All I was doing was listening. The design piece that's behind the scenes. That's back to the conductive education school itself to say who's done anything that matters for what we're doing. Now, I won't go through this entire thing in the interest of time today. It's what the customer's wants, fears, and needs are, and what the product needs to deliver relative to those wants, fears, and needs. So two sides of things, and you keep them going in parallel. One instructs the other. The minute you develop part of a product, show it to the customers, get the customer feedback, build the next iteration of product. Once that product iteration is complete, go back to the same customers and maybe some new ones for their input. Because really what you're wanting to do is making sure the experience, the benefits, and the features really help mitigate or deliver on these wants, mitigate the fears, and certainly provide for the needs that are being articulated by your customer, by these folks. So your first quiz, what's the value proposition here at Crummer? What is it that you know about Crummer that really is an attraction for you to want to be here? So I'll give you a few, and then I'll let you think of a few, and maybe for Q&A we'll discuss a bit more. But the value proposition for me is class size. I love lively discussions. I love people who have different thoughts, different perspectives, because it adds a lot of critical value to what it is we offer here at Crummer. So that's just one aspect of it. When we start going through understanding the value proposition, I'll just hit on a couple of these. It's really important to know what kind of questions to ask folks to get the right kind of information from them. And again, you're going to do a lot of reading between the lines. Industry, like for us, it was conductive education. What is the status quo? Do people agree with that? What does the industry itself look like? Can we conduct research on individual people coming into the center, both the folks who come to the center and the people within the center? Starter questions, you want to make sure that you have some type of framework. So you're taking deeper dives into questions that matter and getting away from questions that don't really matter that much, and so on. And this number 6 here, when you ask for additional contacts, all you're doing is inviting people into your why even more. So if you have a great discussion with somebody, you say, are there other folks that we should be talking to regarding the questions and the great discussion that we just had? And you keep building it out. That's part of the business model too. And it's interesting because the minute you start talking to everybody, you get very different perspectives on what they think and what their fears, wants, and needs are, and how to begin to build those into any product offering. So again, product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. It's as simple as that. Key to winning, hashtag winning, find your product market fit before you've run out of money. As a matter of fact, don't spend any money before you find your product market fit. And so this is done through a whole bunch of discussions, a whole bunch of iterations with groups of people. And you'll know at the minute things, they'll start to get more excited about the discussions and the solutions, even if they're not like prototypes or real working models of what it is you're proposing, they start to get excited about the ideas. So back to Amy for a second. Computer systems collect data all day long, and we can use that data to run some statistics. That's the easy part. As an engineer, that's a gimme. Here's the hard part. Where's the interface so we can start getting real data from Amy and what she's doing in her life to improve her independence? So after observing the parents in the classroom, talking to the conductors who are physical therapists at this conductive education school, and talking to a bunch of programmers and statisticians, all I did was observe, which means listen in each one of these cases, or sometimes watching what they were doing and how they could really come together to help solve this problem. And that equaled a really cool, is this what all three of you kind of agree this system should look like? A good database driven system with cool games a child could play. That came from the parents and the physical therapists. Cool games that children can interact with. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, now that's an interesting thing. So what do we go back and design? We need real-time data for a game, and I was thinking just a TV game, some type of television game. How do we design that? So something fun, engaging, and measurable that requires or can collect real-time data. Here is the camera that of leading both the school and understanding what the parents wanted and wanting to develop an innovation through this culture of curiosity. We came across this camera. Actually, here's a camera that's very similar to this one. And actually, you can see that these cameras, for the most part, fit in the palm of your hand. This camera actually has 6 cameras in it. It will record your body motion. So as you're moving, this camera will record real-time data on how your body is moving. These cameras are just a couple $100, and they collect real-time data. So this technology has been out for a very long time. Let me show you this quick video here so you get an understanding. You can't recreate a phenomenon we've seen in this championship. Sexy. Scanning. Play. All right, so you get the idea on how this, and you can see it's used for video games, which is even better for us. Covered in the video game industry that children really loved, all children it seemed, in terms of this kind of interaction with these video games. So you don't hold anything. There's not a game controller because a lot of children with cerebral palsy can't do that to begin with. But the camera could really begin to measure their motion. So all we had to do was use the same technology for games that these children could actually use. So it's the centerpiece that really made the difference. Are we answering mom's question? How can your center help my child? How do you know, and can you prove it? Yes, we know. We have a camera that can collect data. Your child plays fun games, and here's the statistics to prove it. So here's what the entire innovation looks like now. And you can see the different components. And again, once we knew that the parents knew and their children got really excited about the video games and games they could play too, and the children, they couldn't care less if they were the system was collecting data and statistics were being analyzed and whatever. They just wanted an interface where they could have fun with other children. So we developed multiplayer games as well. And as Steve Jobs says, a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. So our very first, this happened in literally 10 days. It was 30 days of talking to parents, people in the center, observing, finding product market fit, developing an initial business model. But from that point, 10 days, because we knew everybody was excited about, here's what we did. We want to sell the problem that we solve and not the product. And here's exactly how we did it. Mom or dad, we understand you're here at the center to want to know how our center helps your child. We can show you how your child will perform before you register. It's very simple. Could Mom, you and Amy come with us? Absolutely. So we take them to the hallway. And it's like, what's the colored tape on the floor? And what's that TV doing at the end? So we'll show you. Amy, if you would, please, in your walker, step up to the green line and just walk to the red line. And you follow the instructions that are the game really that's on the screen in front of you. So you want to walk as fast as you can. You want to have fun while it's playing, and we'll see what the data looks like. So with that 20-foot walk, we can count the number of steps through the camera and the data we're collecting, the time that it would take the child to walk those 20 feet, the gait, so how high were they lifting their feet, were they dragging their toes, and so on. And all of that data was captured for the most part in real time. Then what we did, remember these performance charts that we showed before, we could say, this is your child today. So draw your own conclusion, but that red line is the general trend for all of these students. Those little blue dots, those are all of the children in our center that participate in our program. So this is real data from them, and this is your child today. It's great that you're above beginning to move to the right fairly quickly. And here's what we did with the games. This is an actual picture from a conductive education center. The conductors are the adults there in the red shirts, and the children with cerebral palsy sit in front of them. And this is called a standing ladder. And you see they're color-coded because the conductor will help the child reach to each rung so they begin to lift themselves up. So this was another aha moment. How do we develop this into a video game? Here it is. And now, by the way, the children can compete. You can have up to 5 ladders at a time, an individual child on each one of the ladders, and they can compete with one another. That picture in the bottom right is what we saw in that video for the camera technology. Those are the joints that the camera is taking data in from. And again, your child today, it's on the green line, thankfully. A bunch of different data that we can collect on your student just individually or by the group. So the whole center benefits from all of the data that we're collecting from all of the students, but we can certainly analyze it individually as well. So when a parent comes in now, it's like, here's a printout. This is what we do here through really cool gaming innovation and a very inexpensive camera. So where does this lead us? Because the innovation never ends. It shouldn't. Here's what's really nice about this. We've already taken what we've learned at the Conductive Education School. Because again, do the children actually, very important question was asked, well, why can't I do this at home? Well, you can. If you have a big TV at home, most people do, and you have a $100 camera or so and Wi-Fi at home, a lot of people do, they just have to buy the camera. All of a sudden, we're reaching thousands of children with cerebral palsy across the entire planet for hundreds of dollars. And when you add a Wi-Fi, some of the costs related to that, and a way to protect the data as it comes from the home back to the center, things really begin to improve for children at home that can't make it to a center or don't have a center near them. Other things, what happens if you break your arm and you're going through some rehabilitation? Once the cast comes off, your doctor's going to put you on this regimen, and you could use this system actually for that rehabilitation right from your own home. And you can probably guess what the pandemic has done for people not wanting to go back to a doctor's office for rehab. So big deal there. Parkinson's disease. If you want to check out a new medicine and its effect on a patient with Parkinson's, give them the medicine, give them an hour or two to let it get into their system, and then put them in front of the camera. Did they improve or not improve in gait, in time, and whatever? So there's a lot of opportunity just beyond the conductive education school. So in summary, I'll go through this quickly because I know we're wrapping up here. We spent about an hour together this morning. Imagine what we can do in an entire course. So course is 12 weeks, 3 hours per course. That's 36 hours. We're less than that, 1 hour, 1/36 of that today. So imagine what we could do with 35 plus more hours of this kind of conversation. And this is just one course. Find your why. It is so important that you discover that. Crummer is the perfect place for this kind of discovery. Don't take my word for it. You heard it from the alum. They still chat with one another. They still get together well past graduation. I love that. Help create and learn an environment that encourages creative thinking and innovation. Start it yourself. Be that person that says, just because things have failed in the past doesn't mean they won't succeed in the future. What have we done? What have we learned? How can we improve? Develop an ability to solve challenges, develop breakthrough options, see new patterns, develop an entrepreneurial mindset of turning problems into opportunities. That is absolutely critical, especially for the courses that I teach. There are always opportunities around problems. It's your job, our job, to identify them and to solve them. And finally, self-actualize. It is so important. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jessica, I guess, for questions.